After the success of Tekken 2, Namco set to work on a sequel, which would be the last Tekken game released on the original PlayStation hardware. Launching in arcades across the world in 1997, Tekken 3 was released on PlayStation in 1998 to massive critical acclaim and commercial success. Tekken 3 took the series to a new level, with an expanded character roster, additional gameplay modes and improved graphics, all running at a smooth 60 frames per second, at least in NTSC regions. The arcade version of Tekken 3 was the first game to use Namco's System 12 hardware, following on from the System 11 hardware used to power the first two games. Even compared to the higher spec System 11 board used for Tekken 2, Tekken 3's graphics are a major leap forward for the series, with higher polygon counts, higher resolution textures and fully three-dimensional backdrops. With the System 12 board being significantly more powerful than the original PlayStation hardware, Tekken 3 had to be scaled back for its home console release. Backgrounds were flattened into 2D textures, resolution and polygon counts were reduced, and even with these changes, the game still struggles to maintain a steady 60Hz frame rate. Despite this, the game was still one of the most visually impressive console games of its era, and for many gamers, the addition of extra game modes, unlockable sub-bosses and bonus characters made the PlayStation version the definitive release. Among the new game modes was a side-scrolling beat-em-up minigame called Tekken Force. In this, the player is tasked with fighting off waves of enemies through several stages, each with a boss character from the main game's roster to fight at the end. Another new mode introduced in Tekken 3 is Tekken Ball, a volleyball-themed minigame in which the player has to kick and punch a volleyball back and forth with an opponent until one of the players is hit and injured by the ball. Higher power and successive attacks will charge the ball with energy, increasing the amount of damage it can do. Like in arcade mode, the game ends when one player's health bar is reduced to 0. Tekken 3 also introduced new and enhanced gameplay mechanics, and is the first title in the series to include fully 3D movement for all characters, as opposed to the limited 3D sidestepping of Tekken 2. Being set almost 20 years after Tekken 2, several characters from the previous games didn't appear in Tekken 3, or were replaced by new characters descended from those in the first two games. Only 6 fighters returned for Tekken 3. Nina Williams was cryogenically frozen at the end of the last tournament, after being captured by Kazuya's troops. She is woken up when Ogre is unearthed by Heihachi's Tekken 4 squad, and Ogre uses his power to wipe Nina's mind, and sends her to assassinate Jin in the King of Iron Fist tournament. Anna Williams discovered that her sister Nina had been cryogenically frozen by Dr. Boskonovich. Rather than allow her sister to look younger than her, Anna asked the doctor to freeze her alongside her sister and wake her at the same time. Nearly 20 years later, the presence of the god of fighting caused Nina to wake up, though Nina had lost all of her memories, putting a temporary end to their sibling rivalry. Anna is awoken by Dr. Boskonovich and enters the tournament to stop her sister from assassinating Jin.
You win.
Heihachi Mishima returns as the head of the Mishima Empire, having defeated his son Kazuya in the second King of Iron Fist tournament. Heihachi's private army, known as Tekken Force, discovers the burial site of Ogre, but Ogre awakens and kills everyone present. Upon hearing of this, Heihachi organises a third King of Iron Fist tournament and trains his grandson Jin in the art of Mishima Karate in order to lure Ogre to him. His ultimate goal is to defeat and capture Ogre and use his power to rule the world.
You win.
Lei Wulong is still a detective working for the Hong Kong police force and is investigating the disappearance of several of the world's most prominent martial artists. His investigation leads him to cross paths with Heihachi Mishima, who asks him to join the third King of Iron Fist tournament. Lei accepts the challenge, hoping to shed some light on the martial artist's disappearance and complete his investigation.
Win.
Paul was successful in the second King of Iron Fist tournament, but missed his opportunity to fight Kazuya after an accident on the expressway prevented him from getting to the match on time, and ultimately ending in his disqualification. Paul has entered the third King of Iron Fist tournament in the hope of finally winning the one tournament that has eluded him so far. Yoshimitsu learns that his old friend Dr. Boskonovich is suffering from a mysterious illness and needs blood of the fighting god in order to live. Yoshimitsu enters the tournament in the hope of defeating Ogre and taking a sample of his blood in order to save his friend's life.
You win.
Dr. Boskonovich is a Russian scientist who first appeared in Yoshimitsu's ending movie from Tekken 2, which shows Yoshimitsu rescuing the Doctor from Kazuya's soldiers. In Tekken 3, Dr. Boskonovich is now a fully playable character and is unlocked by finishing the Tekken Force mode 4 times. He is famous for his work in weapons technology, android construction and human cloning, but his real focus is on curing the mysterious disease that he suffers from and reviving his deceased daughter Elisa. He has entered the third King of Iron Fist tournament to obtain the blood of the fighting god, Ancient Ogre, in the hope that it will help him cure his affliction and revive his daughter.
You win.
Brian Fury is a police officer turned cyborg who was killed in a shootout in Hong Kong and subsequently revived as a cyborg by a mad scientist known as Dr. Abel, a jealous rival of Dr. Boskonovich. After completing his work on Brian, Dr. Abel dispatched Brian to the third King of Iron Fist tournament in the hope of collecting data on Dr. Boskonovich's technology in order to create a cyborg army.
You win.
Eddie Gordo is from Brazil and is the son of a wealthy industrialist who was murdered by a criminal cartel known as the Organization. Eddie is falsely imprisoned for this crime, where he takes the opportunity to stay hidden from the organisation while he trains in the art of capoeira. Upon his eventual release from prison, Eddie enters the tournament in the hope of taking over the Mishima Empire and exacting his revenge on those responsible for his father's death.
You win.
Gon is a small yellow dinosaur and is a guest character originally from a Japanese manga series of the same name. He spends his time travelling the world but doesn't have any particular motive for entering the King of Iron Fist tournament other than curiosity. As a bonus character, he is unlocked by completing the Tekken Ball bonus game.
You win.
Gunjack is the third main Jack model playable in the Tekken series, following on from Jack and Jack 2. At the end of the previous game, while standing on a tropical island with the girl he had rescued earlier, Jack 2 was destroyed by one of Dr. Abel's orbital laser satellites. Many years later, the girl known as Jane learns that a subsidiary of Mishima Zaibatsu known as Mishima Heavy Industries has recently completed work on a new android concept known as Project Gunjack. Hoping to restore her beloved Jack 2, Jane sneaks into Mishima Heavy Industries and activates the Gunjack android and enters him into the tournament. Hwoarang is a student of Taekwondo master Baek Do-san, who was attacked and presumably killed by Ogre in a bid to absorb Baek's fighting abilities. Hwoarang enters the tournament to exact revenge for the presumed death of his mentor, while also seeking to prove himself against Kazuya Mishima, whom Hwoarang had failed to defeat in an earlier fight.
You win.
Jin Kazama is the son of Kazuya Mishima and Jun Kazama. Like Baek Do-san, Jun was attacked and presumed killed by Ogre, leading Jin to seek training under his grandfather Heihachi in order to exact his revenge. After his training is complete, Jin enters the third King of Iron Fist tournament in order to confront Ogre.
You win.
Julia Chang is the adopted daughter of Michelle Chang, having been found abandoned in the ruins of a Native American settlement as a baby. Having heard stories of several martial arts masters disappearing at the hands of Ogre, Michelle flew to Japan to confront Heihachi about the pendant he sought to obtain during the second tournament and its link to the mysterious Ogre. When Michelle failed to return, Julia entered the third King of Iron Fist tournament to find her mother and seek out the truth from Heihachi. King in Tekken 3 is technically a different character to the King from the first two Tekken games. He was brought up in the original King's orphanage and was trained as a wrestler by King himself. When the original King was attacked and killed by Ogre, the new King assumed his title and role and was taken under the wing of Armor King, who trained and prepared him for the new tournament as a way to test his abilities and avenge the death of his mentor. Kuma is actually the son of Kuma from the first two games. Like his father, Kuma is Heihachi's pet bear and bodyguard, and was trained as a fighter in the same way. After seeing footage of Paul on television, Kuma became obsessed with beating him in a fight and enters the tournament with this as his sole aim.
You win.
Forest Law is the son of Martial Law and dreams of one day achieving the same level of success and greatness as his father. Despite Forest being a highly skilled fighter, Martial forbids him from entering any contests outside the dojo as a way of keeping his son safe, though he does allow him to spar with Paul whenever the opportunity arises. Unaware of the restrictions that Martial had placed on his son, Paul encourages Forest to enter the third King of Iron Fist tournament as a way of proving his worth as a successor to his father. Ling Xiaoyu is a 16-year-old schoolgirl whose ultimate goal in life is to own an amusement park. As a student of Wang Jinrei, Xiaoyu is a skilled fighter but is ultimately uninterested in martial arts and spends most of her time daydreaming. Aware of the Mishima Corporation's power and influence, she stows away on a Mishima yacht while on holiday in Hong Kong, in the hope of meeting Heihachi and seeking his help in building her own amusement park. Xiaoyu is discovered on board the yacht by the Tekken 4 security team, but ultimately defeats all of them with ease. She is eventually confronted by Heihachi himself, who promises to build her an amusement park if she can win the third King of Iron Fist tournament. Mokujin, which means wooden man in Japanese, is a training dummy made from a 2,000-year-old oak tree and was kept in a museum until Ogre awoke, at which point Mokujin came to life as a way to protect the world from Ogre. Lacking any moves of his own, Mokujin randomly takes on the full moveset of a random character every time he starts a new round of a fight. Mokujin has entered the tournament to defeat Ogre and save the world from evil. Panda is Xiaoyu's bodyguard and a palette swap of Kuma. After Xiaoyu accepted Heihachi's offer of entering the tournament, Heihachi took her under his wing and trained Panda for her as he had trained Kuma previously. Panda is suspicious of Kuma and keeps her distance from him whenever possible. Tiger Jackson is a counterpart and character swap of Eddie Gordo. As a result, he shares an identical moveset with Eddie and doesn't have any backstory of his own. Tiger would go on to be featured in Tekken Tag Tournament, and even gets his own character slot in Tekken Tag Tournament 2, but both of these games are considered to be non-canon, and Tekken 3 marks Tiger's only appearance as a playable character in a mainline Tekken game. Ogre, also known as Ancient Ogre, is the main antagonist of Tekken 3, and the first villain of the series who isn't a member of the Mishima family. According to Native American legend, Ogre was a biological weapon left on Earth by an unknown alien race, and was worshipped by the Aztecs as the god of fighting. Seeking to use the power of Ogre for his own gains, Heihachi dispatches his Tekken 4 squad to an ancient temple in Mexico in a bid to capture Ogre, but the entire squad is obliterated. Ogre subsequently attacks and kills several of the most powerful martial artists across the world and takes their fighting powers as his own. In order to lure Ogre to him, Heihachi organises the third King of Iron Fist tournament, and Ogre takes the bait. Ogre is unlocked as a playable character after beating the game's arcade mode 8 times. True Ogre is the ultimate form of Ancient Ogre. After Ancient Ogre is defeated at the end of the tournament, he absorbs Heihachi's power and morphs into a larger, more beast-like form. True Ogre is unable to speak, and instead only roars, and has a much wilder disposition than its previous humanoid form. True Ogre is the final unlockable player in arcade mode, and is unlocked after beating the game 9 times.
You win.
Tekken 3 was the last game in the series to be released on the original PlayStation console. Its successor, Tekken 4, would be released 4 years later in arcades in 2001 and on PlayStation 2 in 2002. Before then, however, Namco would release a compilation spin-off in the form of Tekken Tag Tournament, a non-canon title that includes almost every fighter from the series so far. Tekken Tag Tournament was released in 1999 in arcades and as a US and European launch title for PlayStation 2 in 2000. Similar to Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament was based on System 12 hardware, which meant, for the first time in the series, the home console release would be using higher spec hardware than the arcade original. The PlayStation 2 version used a completely new engine, which was later modified for use in Tekken 4, and features higher polygon counts, animated facial expressions, background spectators, and more detailed 3D environments. Almost all the characters from previous Tekken games were present, with only the original versions of Jack, King and Kuma missing, along with Law and Gon, while Dr. Boskonovich is only included as a non-playable character, as seen in the crowd in Tekken Bowl mode. Unlike previous games, there isn't really any overall storyline, but each character still has their own short ending movie. There are 2 new characters introduced in Tekken Tag Tournament: Tetsujin and Unknown. Tetsujin, which means Iron Man in Japanese, serves as a metal palette swap of Mokujin and has an identical mimic moveset. Unknown is another mimic character and serves as the game's final boss. She only appears in non-canon Tekken games and has a limited backstory, but it is likely that she is Jin's missing mother, Jun Kazama, who has been possessed by a forest demon in wolf form. In her ending movie, she is shown to fight free of the forest demon, and in Ogre's ending movie, Unknown is shown interrupting Ogre before he is able to consume Jin's soul. Tekken Tag Tournament's core gameplay is based heavily on Tekken 3, but with the character selection changed so that the player chooses 2 characters to play through the game with, rather than just one. Players can swap between their chosen characters at will, and the fight ends only when both characters have been knocked out. The player's health bars work slightly differently too, and now include a red danger zone that will slowly refill if the character is tagged out. Most characters will simply run on and swap places when tagged, but if the player chooses both Kazuya and Devil as their team, Kazuya will morph into Devil when the tag button is pressed. The game's backgrounds are based mainly on those from Tekken 3, but set during a different season or time of day. For example, Yoshimitsu's stage in Tekken 3 is a lush green forest, but in Tekken Tag Tournament it's the same forest, just covered in snow. Like Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament featured new gameplay modes not present in the arcade original, including a one-on-one mode, theatre, gallery and Tekken Bowl mode. In Tekken Bowl, players choose 2 characters, with one character bowling first and the second character stepping in if the player doesn't get a strike first time. Rather than being a purely aesthetic decision, the choice of character does have an influence on the style of play, with more powerful characters like Jack having a stronger role. And the game even goes as far as giving Yoshimitsu, Brian and Jack targeting abilities, effectively making them an easy mode option for Tekken Bowl. Tekken Tag Tournament was also released on PlayStation 3 several years later as part of the Tekken Hybrid Collection. The PlayStation 3 release, known as Tekken Tag Tournament HD, features high resolution graphics and a widescreen aspect ratio, but removes the one-on-one mode featured on PlayStation 2. While the gameplay is presented in 1080p widescreen, the pre-rendered movies are still shown in the original 4:3 aspect ratio.
You win.
Tekken Tag Tournament was a huge success for Sony and helped push early sales of PlayStation 2 hardware. It would eventually see a follow-up in the form of Tekken Tag Tournament 2, released in 2011 in arcades and 2012 on home consoles. In the meantime, Namco were hard at work on a direct sequel to Tekken 3, and one that would see the biggest changes in the series to date.